I'm Lubomira, and thank you for joining me today. I wanted to send a warm welcome to all our new crafty friends. It's been really an exciting few days, and so many new beautiful faces have reached out. I love sharing my creations with you, and it warms my heart to know that you find value in what I have to show. It is truly an honor to have you join me on this crafty adventure, so thank you so very much to all of you. Now that you're here and you like my content, please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. By hitting that little bell, you'll get notified every time I post something new, and you won't miss out on any of the crafty goodness. In today's video, I'm sharing another friendship themed card. This card is very simple in design with a pop of color, and again, it uses up those scraps we have. As far as technique, it's really a beginner-friendly card as well. There's no complicated coloring or intricate die cutting to do. It involves basic die cutting and the stamping of one greeting. I'm excited to share this card with you, so let's get into the video. To create this card, I used a Dollar Tree flower border die, a stamp set for the sentiment, and a scrap paper pack. I started off by creating the background element for my card. Now I know it may seem counterintuitive to be using a Dollar Tree paper pack here when I have scraps galore, but bear with me. For those of us who do not have a paper stash, this is a viable option for creating accents and having just extra scraps. The scraps come in an assortment of colors, textures, and weights. Each pack is different, and the scraps themselves vary in size, some being as large as a standard A2 card base, while others aren't more than an inch or two. I selected a few pieces of paper in a warm color palette of pink and yellow and created strips using my trimmer. I created an assortment of widths ranging from about 1/8 of an inch to a 1/2 inch. Here's the fun part, and I hope I explained this right. After creating my strips, I used them to make a woven background. I first glued 2 strips together in what looks like a lowercase letter T. The idea here is to build the background by interlacing the strips in an under and over pattern with each other. The lowercase t serves as my foundation, where I add alternating under and over strips too. I first worked across, placing a few strips. Then I started to add strips downward, adding glue between them to keep everything in place. I mixed textures, widths, and colors to add more interest in the final result. After I had a 2 or 3 inch patch of paper woven, I trimmed the excess using some scissors. I trimmed the pieces in an uneven staggered pattern. I would recommend leaving more overhang than less, because you can always trim it back and make adjustments in the final project. To add stability to the piece, some of the papers are very thin. I added a piece of cardstock to the middle of the back of the woven background. It doesn't matter the shape of the cardstock, but you don't want it to show from underneath the edge of the woven pieces. Mine here is a circle, but like I said, it doesn't matter. The purpose of it is to add stability as a whole. Next, I die cut the flower border from some white cardstock. I had some scrap pieces of 2-inch cardstock left over from another project. I attached the die with low-tack tape so that the edge of the top of the die lined up along the edge of the cardstock. I die cut the pieces off camera and repeated it 3 times. This die doesn't cut through completely to the end, so I had to snip the die cut free using some scissors. Honestly, this is one of my favorite dies in my stash, and I can't get over how well it cuts considering it's from the Dollar Tree. If you don't have this die though, don't worry, check your stash. Trees and flowers would be lovely in its place, or maybe some buildings and houses could be fun. Don't stress it if you don't have exactly the same things I'm using. It's all about being creative and getting that positivity flowing rather than worrying about the supplies. I trimmed the flower border using my trimmer. I wanted to trim these so that they were as similar to each other as possible, so that stacking them would be easier. I stacked and glued the borders together. I wanted to add a little bit more stability to the flower since the die is rather dainty. especially in the stem. If you find that the bottom edge of your stacked flowers doesn't line up, you can trim the layered border once it's glued. I trimmed my border using my trimmer to cut it down to size. I took off about an inch from each side. This isn't the easiest of tasks since it is pretty thick. A rotary trimmer or scissors would probably be easier to do this than my guillotine. I think that sometimes it's the small details that really bring a design together. Are they necessary? No. But do they add something special to a card? Absolutely. This next step is just that, and you can completely choose to skip it. I like adding an embossed frame around the border of my card base using my scoreboard. Scoreboards can be used for more than just folding your cards, so they make a great addition to a crafter's arsenal of tools. I wanted my embossed line to end at a single point. You can just score it completely as you would when folding a card. This will give you a little box on each corner of the cardstock, but I chose a cleaner look. I went ahead and scored my card panel at 1/4 of an inch. I started the score line about an inch lower than the edge of the paper and brought it down, also ending it before it reached the bottom. I rotated the cardstock and repeated the same to all the sides. I continued to rotate and score the card little by little until I connected the embossed lines at the corners. I used this handy tool also from the Dollar Tree. I'm not sure what this doohickey actually is. I think it's used in clay sculpting, but it has 2 rounded points, one small and one large, that works really well for this. You don't need a lot of pressure when doing this. If you use too much, in fact, you risk tearing the paper. I attached my card panel to my card base using liquid glue and the woven background to my card front using foam squares. Next, I added my flower border and attached it in front of the woven background using foam squares as well. For the greeting, I used sending a card instead of a text, which I think is a really relatable sentiment. I prefer using banners rather than directly stamping on projects. There's always a sense of security and an escape plan if things should go awry, but once in a while the design calls for simplicity. So here I stamped and I prayed. I placed my card into my mini Misty, pre-treated the area with an anti-static tool, and stamped the words in Versamark ink. Then I sprinkled gold embossing powder over the wet ink and heat set it with my heat tool. There was a tiny bit of warping which came out after I stuck the bottom edge of the card under something heavy. Not a big deal at all. Ideally, I would have stamped the greeting earlier on in the project before assembling it, but it was a last-minute decision. To finish, I cleaned up the card by trimming some of the woven strip edges and added a fun detail to the center of the flowers using Nuvo crystal drops in coordinating colors. And that's it for this card. I really had fun making this project. I love how the background adds that pop of color to this project. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and please leave me those comments below. I'm really looking forward to reading them. I hope you'll join me next time for another project. Until then, have a wonderful week, and I do hope life treats you kindly. Take care. Bye.